everybody, welcome to Bestie Book Reviews. I'm here with my bestie Mandy.
And I'm here with my bestie Jessica and C.W. Farnsworth, also known as Charlotte.
Yeah.
Hello, ladies. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Great. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, thanks for coming on.
Yes, we're very excited to have you.
Mandy has a slight headache this morning, so she's trying to focus. I can see.
It's getting better, but I'm a little concerned with how much ibuprofen I took.
Oh, no. Oops.
You know. All right, so we'll just dive right into questions. So our first question would be, what types of books do you write, and is there somewhere you would recommend someone starts if they have not read your books before?
Yeah, so my books are all contemporary romance as sort of the starting point, but I have jumped around a fair amount in sort of subgenres or tropes, I guess. I started mostly in sports and have since devolved into small town, billionaire, mafia. I'm definitely a mood writer, and I like to throw a little variety and different stuff in. And so a lot of readers find me through my sports romance, I would say, are some of my most popular titles. First Flight, Final Fall is a college soccer romance that I know a lot of readers start with. Same with Kiss Now, Lie Later, which is sort of an enemies to lovers football romance. Famous Last Words is my college hockey romance, is also another popular starting point. But you can start anywhere, is how I always preface it. So I purposefully write all of my titles so that even if they're part of a series, they can be read as a standalone, and you don't have to start with the first book in the series. I want it to be, as inclusive as possible, and for readers to really find a book that connects with them, not necessarily if it's the beginning of my backlist or the end of my backlist. You can really jump in anywhere. So my usual first question to someone if they ask where to start is, do you prefer YA or adult, or do you have certain tropes that you love or avoid, to sort of gauge their starting point. But those are some of my most popular titles. Fake Empire, which is a billionaire romance, is also one of my most popular books that a lot of readers find me through, I think. And so I have those sort of touchstones, but then I also say, yeah, you can start anywhere. And I have a fair amount of variety. So if there's something in particular that you're looking for, chances are I have a book that tackles it in some shape or form. So.
And I'm, out of the two of us, I read a lot more dark romance, which you don't necessarily have dark, but you have a mafia romance. And that is the first, I think that was the first book of yours that it wasn't. There was a different one, but that was the one that I was like, ooh, I like this one. Yeah. So yeah, so if they're more into mafia type stuff, you do have that as well.
I do have one. Yes, so, exactly. Yeah. I try to have a little something for everyone if I can.
You do. Look at that.
You really do. Every time I read one of your books, I'm always like, oh, this is so different than the last book I read by her. Everyone. And Come Break My Heart Again is probably my favorite. And it is very different. I feel like it's one that's really hard to talk about because I feel like it's really good if you go in blind.
Mm-hmm. I recommend that. I don't love reading synopsises for books. I often try to go in blind as a reader because it's so, from an author perspective, I will say it's so difficult to write a synopsis that is engaging and makes, a reader excited without giving away some or all of the major plot points, because you're essentially previewing the entire book. And so inevitably that gives away certain aspects of the story. Mm-hmm. And I think I try to write more vague blurbs for that precise reason, because I know a lot of readers, obviously the blurb is right there when you buy or read the book. And so it's easy to look at and sort of get that preview of a story. But yeah, I'm the same way. I love going into books as blind as possible, because there's so many fun aspects of the story that get revealed as you go in, or that you like to try to guess. I never send the blurb or have revealed the blurb to my beta readers often. And so, for example, I sent Antihero, my latest release, to all my beta readers without them knowing it was accidental pregnancy. And so I have some very funny comments of in the first few chapters, wait, is this an accidental, or guessing about what was going to come in later chapters, because that's not immediately evident that that's one of the storylines when you first start reading it. So
yeah, I love those surprises. I think because we read so much, it's hard for Mandy and I to be surprised in a book unless we go in blind and know nothing. So I like to do that.
I do too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
It's
also
hard
have
too.
some.
I feel like trope marketing is very prevalent now too, as well, where readers like to sort of get that snapshot of a story really going into it.
Mhm.
And so I try to be cognizant of that, of like, it's just a fine line to straddle of like how much you're revealing about a book before it comes out, to get readers excited about it and to attract readers who do like those certain storylines or plot lines or looking for that type of book without giving too much away before it's first released.
Exactly. It's a very fine line.
Yes.
You also have some good emotional, angsty books as well. Flyby, that one really surprised me at how much that got me.
Look at it. Like, yeah, I'm a mood writer, so I definitely go through different phases or moods of just kind of sort of the stories I'm trying to write. And I purposefully don't try to make any of my books too similar to the others. So if I get a story idea that feels too similar to a book I've already written, I will usually just pass on it, at least for the time being, until I can try to find a more engaging or different spin on it. I think some of my most popular books, and A Fake Empire is sort of the first one that comes to mind, where I didn't intend to write a billionaire romance. That was never a favorite of mine as a reader. And what really convinced me and got me excited about that story was that the billionaire romances that I had read, he was always the billionaire, and she was less wealthy or needed his help. Like, he needed her for inheritance, or there was some sort of plot line where she was in a somewhat subservient position. And so what really excited me about that story was sort of having them be on a level plane and having her be a billionaire as well, and not needing him for his money. He sort of equally needs her. And so they're forming this sort of empire together. And so I think, I try to particularly draw out, or at least have clear in my mind, whether it comes across to readers or not is another story, but know some sort of unique element of each story as I'm working on it. And so I think that is partially why my books don't feel as similar to each other as maybe some other authors who have a more cohesive brand do, because I'm purposefully doing that to a certain extent, which is maybe not the best marketing strategy, but keeps me sort of engaged and excited as a writer as I'm working on each new book. So,
I mean, as a reader, it's awesome though.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it's working for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do feel badly though sometimes when like a reader is like, I love this book of yours. Do you have what's most similar? And so, some of my books all fall in the billionaire category or the sports category or something, but I have, I don't have usually a very close equation from one book to another. So oftentimes readers are like, what do you have that's just like this? And, for Pretty Ugly Promises, for example, I get a lot of ongoing requests for another Mafia. Yeah. And I always, as of now, at least, that's my only one. And so I do feel badly when I can't give them an equivalent right away. But one day, we'll see.
Maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Keeping the options open.
You could just make like really like long-winded ways to like connect. So like Mafia to Kiss Now Lie Later. I mean, they're like rivals in different towns. Like, make these long paths to it.
Yeah, different font.
Yeah, that's funny.
So do you have a favorite book you've written or a favorite character? And I know this is a really hard, mean question that we ask. This is probably the worst question we'll ask you.
Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, it's just a hard question. If you have more than one book out, I'll say it's a hard question to answer, because you spend so much time in this world and with these characters, and they're inevitably, special to you in different ways. I think for me, the book answer is whichever one I'm currently working on, because that's what still feels like mine. It hasn't gone out in the world yet. It hasn't had, been opened up to criticism or to having kind of that outside lens on it. And so that always feels most, I'm most protective of it, I guess, when it's still in that sort of incubation stage where I'm still drafting and working, making changes on it, and not many people have read it. So for right now, I'm working on Kluvberg 3, which is in my soccer series. that goes along with First Plate, Final Fall, and All the Wrong Plays. So that book is my favorite right now. I'm really happy with how that's coming out. And then for character, I often say Lennon from Left Field Love, which is my small town baseball romance. She's just a very like quietly strong character, and that book, you meet them at the beginning of high school and then it follows them all the way into college and adulthood. I originally wrote it as a duet and then re-released it as just one book. And I think because it follows such a longer time span than most of my stories, you really feel like you grow up and grow with those two characters. And so they're a couple that have really stuck with me and just have, I don't know, that much stronger of a hold on me, I guess, because I followed them first for what felt like such a longer stretch of time. And again, that's such a transformative point in your life. And so following two characters through that stage, I think they and Lennon in particular will always have kind of a special hold on me for that reason. So I could give you an answer for each of my characters, honestly, but that's the one that often comes to mind first and that I think I stick with most consistently. So
I know it's a really rough question to ask, but it's one that everybody's always curious about too. And almost
I totally understand why people ask it, and I should maybe just like answer a different book every time rather than I don't know, and then giving one. I should just come up with a response for each book because I easily could. But yeah, they're all your babies in different ways, you know.
Yeah, you could just print off like your reading order, and then every time you're asked, you just like, okay, said that one, and then you just go through the whole list.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to start doing.
Yeah.
Then you'll have some readers who will be like, no, she said this book was her favorite.
Yeah, exactly. Really throw them out the scent.
That'd be funny.
Now, that is some book drama I could get behind, like arguing over what the author said was her favorite book. Like that I could get behind that book drama. The other stuff, not so much.
And then I wouldn't have to worry about remembering which book I said either.
Yes.
I think I have accidentally given different answers at different times. So
yeah, that's funny.
So you kind of told us a little bit about what you're currently working on. Are you able to share any more or any other upcoming projects that you have?
Yeah, so I'm currently so I have one more release before the end of this year, which is All the Wrong Plays is re-releasing with Entangled. They picked up 4 of my backlist titles, and those have all been released this year. 3 of the 4 have already come out, and there's one more coming out October 28th. So that's the same book. It's got a bonus chapter that actually alludes to the 3rd book in the series, which is Otto's book. For anyone who's read the first 2 books, he's a recurring character in those. And that will come out May 5th of next year is when that book is going to release. I'm going to release the ebook and the audiobook, and Entangled is releasing the paperback. So it'll be on bookstores on release day, which is the first time that's happened for me and is very exciting. And then the other book I'm currently working on is Cruel Summer, which is the 3rd book in my 2nd generation Kensington's Billionaire series. And that will be out on February 24th of next year. So those are my 2 current projects. Both are actually the 3rd books in series, but again, both can be read as standalones, as any of my titles. You can jump in wherever, but those are set. The Kluveberg is my sort of soccer series, and then the Kensington 2nd generation is a billionaire sort of set in New York City primarily. All the books have different side settings, but they're, I guess, headquartered, so to speak, in New York. So that's a recurring setting in those.
So you're a little bit busy.
Just a little.
Yeah, because I mean,
just got 2 books finished.
Yeah, February sounds pretty far off, but when I sit and think about it, it'll be here before we know
it's
it.
really not that far away, yeah. Especially when you've got to build in beta readers and editors and proofreaders and audiobook recordings and formatting, and sneaks up on you fast. So
very fast. Yeah.
And now Charlotte suddenly needs to end the interview and go.
Yeah, no, sorry, I didn't mean to panic you.
No, it's fine. I work well under pressure.
Yeah. Okay, that's good because I think I just added some there. So, oops.
Yes. Well, they're both I will say the books are both basically written. I'm about 90,000 on Kluberg 3, and I have a full first draft of Coral Summer. So
Okay.
I'm through sort of the first phase of getting the first draft down is always the hardest part for me. And then once I have words on the page to work with, the self-editing process is actually my favorite part.
Okay.
So I've got something to look forward to this fall.
Yay!
Exactly.
So when you are writing, what is your process like? Do you sit down and kind of plan everything out, or do you just start typing and have no idea where you're going to end up? How does it kind of flow for you normally?
Yeah, it varies a little book by book. My process has never been identical for two stories. It varies for standalone versus series. So as I mentioned, both of these books are part of series. And so you're just more cognizant of storylines that you might be carrying from other books. There's a lot of character overlap typically. So I can't just come up with a random hair color for a character that's been introduced before. I have to go back to the manuscript for the previous book and search that character and figure out what their age was or their hair color or any other details I may have just come up with them spur of the moment previously and have now locked in for. So there's that. And I try to flesh out all of those details in the first draft, so I'm not having to go back later on. So if I am including a scene with a character I know has been introduced previously, when I'm writing the first draft, that's when I'll go back and check all those details. So I'm not having to do so later. I'm able to like drill down much more specifically on dialogue or word choice, or really sort of start polishing it more so. That being said, I do try to write my first drafts very quickly for a few different reasons. One, before I start writing, I tend to have a very clear idea of the plot as a whole. And so I'm trying to get it down sort of in one stream of consciousness so that all the pieces line up and this beginning of the book is fresh in my mind still when I'm writing the end of the book. And so just getting it down as quickly as possible is most efficient for that goal. And I also try not to let myself second guess as much when I'm getting that first draft down. So I don't send my book in, like, I don't send the first 5 chapters to beta readers and then get their feedback and then keep writing. I don't show anyone any part of the book until I have a full draft finished, because I tried it once and it really messed with my process to get feedback too early. So the faster I can get it down and out and the less I second guess myself, the better I feel about that first draft for whatever reason. And so I have a clear idea when I try to sit down. I don't ever try to be too unsure, because again, that messes with my process if I'm writing and I don't know what comes next. So I've started to be a little bit more of a plotter, and I do actually write out an outline now, which I didn't used to do, but that is very bare bones. It's like, I'm trying not to say anything for my next book because that's precious in my mind. I'm going to edit it out. But like for Antihero, for example, so the first chapter I'd be like, they're both at a party would be my outline. The second chapter would be like hotel room scene. And then third chapter would be, Kit at work. Lily shows up. So it's like very bare bones of just like the basic thing that needs to happen in that chapter. I don't write out any dialogue. I don't write out any details about who shows up in that scene. It's very just whatever gets the plot along. It's like where they're located and who's in it, who are the primary people in that scene usually. So I have that just as sort of guideposts as I'm going through, as like very basic check-ins of this needs to happen in this chapter to advance the plot. And so, I'll go through and write that whole first draft. And then I'll go back and just do rounds and rounds and rounds and rounds of self-editing and keep changing. And that's usually when I add a lot of, so oftentimes in the first draft, I will just write like chunks of dialogue, and I won't include any details of like this conversation's happening in their bedroom or in a car, or even use dialogue tags necessarily. It'll just be, again, trying to get it down as quickly as possible, basically. And so all that gets cleaned up in my rounds of self-edits. And then once I'm happy with that entire draft is when I'll start getting input from other readers and from my beta readers, and start implementing that feedback. And then again, that process just continues for a while until it's in the shape or I reach my deadline and it has to go to my editor. So that's the basic process. Again, yeah, it varies a little book by book. Some just come to me more fully formed than others. I've had some books that really I have not changed much of the original plot line, and then others have gone through massive rewrites as I've gotten sort of into the later stages of just like deciding this scene doesn't work or this plot line doesn't work, and having to like go back and remove it and make those larger changes. And that is just, again, just varies sort of story to story. No two books are the same. So yeah.
Have you ever had a character that you feel like we're going this direction, and then all of a sudden it's like, no, that's not the way they want me to go with this, and you've had to change course?
Yeah, I don't think that's happened with main characters per se. I tend to just have a more fully formed sense of the main characters in a book. I will say side characters have sort of surprised me. For example, in Come Break My Heart Again, Tuck was originally not a very prominent character. He was just like, your main characters need friends or have friends usually. And so I threw him in there, and then really liked him. I added then his romance with Kira as sort of a subplot line and fleshed his character out a little bit more fully than I initially planned to. So I've had side characters surprise me in that way. And my main characters just, I think, because so much more of the story is centered around them, when I've plotted out the book, I've just had a much stronger sense of who those characters are from the very beginning. And so they've rarely veered that far off course once I've decided that. Like, certainly early on, I'm still sort of learning who they are and making those decisions. But once I get to the point where I'm actually writing the book, I feel like I typically know them well enough that nothing too crazy or drastic changes at this point.
So how did you end
up like talking about my imaginary friends when I talk about characters? Weird feeling, but
I love it.
How did you end up becoming a romance author?
Yes, so I was always an avid reader growing up, not necessarily just romance, but I loved reading and read voraciously, and not only fiction, I love nonfiction. I loved mysteries, thrillers, and honestly didn't read that much romance at the time. And then graduated college. I was a political science major, so I did a fair amount of writing in college, but it was mostly research, again, nonfiction. It wasn't anything in the fiction space. And graduated college, was working, my first adult 9-to-5 job. And I had this story idea, and I started writing it in the evenings as just a creative outlet. I didn't have, I was in the legal field, and so a lot of the day work I was doing was like very dry, some of it heavy sort of criminal stuff. And again, yeah, I just wanted that creative outlet. And so I started writing as a hobby and finished a full book and didn't know what to do with it because I had never considered becoming an author or pursued that path or researched that path. I didn't know anyone who'd been published that I could ask for advice or insight on. And so just sat on it for a while and had another story idea and had just enjoyed, it was like my me time, happy place in the evenings, where instead of watching, TV, I would just sit and write. And it was a fun escape from the world. And I just really enjoyed the process of writing and creating like this whole customized worlds. I think one of the most beautiful parts of being an author for me is you get to create the exact story you want to write or that you want to read. And so it was just that creative process for me was really fun and something that I had never explored before. And so I finished a second full book and decided I wanted to do something with it rather than just letting it sit. And so researched the process of self-publishing a little bit. And I won't get into sort of those technical details because they're rather boring, but figured out how to format and upload and all of that stuff, and released my first book, which was 4 months, 3 words. and people found it and read it, which was entirely unexpected. I didn't send out ARCs or have social media or do any of the things that I now know you're supposed to do to promote or to release a book. And so then I decided to start all over and write another book, and kept that up for about 2.5 years. I was writing and publishing while working full time, and it just reached a point where it was untenable to do both. It's self-publishing is more than full-time job on its own, and having to balance it with a day job it just got to the point where I really couldn't do it anymore. And I was fortunate enough to be in a financial position. My books were making a lot more money than I was at my day job. And so it was still very scary to make that leap to being self-employed, and I'd always sort of had this safety net where if I wanted to stop writing, I could. And also, like I said, I started off with writing really being a hobby. And so I was also nervous to make that transition to it being a job and sort of losing a little bit of the joy and the freedom of writing, if that makes sense, where there was more pressure on it, obviously, having it be a full-time career. But I just crossed 2 years of doing it full-time. I feel very, very fortunate to get to do it. It was a very unexpected yet wonderful sort of turn that my life took, but it was not the plan, and was sort of just a gradual process where I was very fortunate to have readers find me and to continue to read my books.
That's a cool story, though.
Thank you.
That you were just doing something you wanted to do as a creative outlet, and then weren't just to have people randomly find you when you weren't even really trying to get readers. That's just really cool.
Yeah, no, it is. I think for all the downsides that social media can and does have, that it does, I think we're sort of in this really beautiful time. I think COVID inadvertently contributed as well, where there was a big sort of reading renaissance. It felt like, at least for me, maybe just from an author perspective, but it felt like, people were picking up hobbies that they hadn't previously, or were able to devote more time to interests or passions that they hadn't been able to previously. And so I think that it's obvious, it's a dream for anyone to be able to do what you love for a career, obviously, which are possible for everyone. And I feel so lucky that it worked out for me that way, and not that there aren't hard days or downsides to it as well. But it's a dream come true in so many ways. To get to just get up in the morning and write is again my favorite part of the process, and it's just a great. I feel very lucky. So.
So now that writing is your job, what do you like to do in your free time?
What free time?
Yes.
That's what everybody says.
I try to read as much as I can. Obviously, it's I live very close to the beach, so this time of year I try to get out. I try to get out regardless. For a walk or a run every day. But this time of year in particular, especially where hopefully you guys are enjoying similar weather, but it's been just gorgeous here lately, mid-70s and no humidity, which is my ideal climate. So I try to get outside and do as much outdoor stuff as I can, especially this time of year, because it is a long, cold winter in New England. But as I said, one of the downsides of being self-employed is that there's truly always more you can be doing. And so I'm trying to facilitate a better work-life balance, but it can be a struggle with everything that I'm trying to keep track of and manage myself. So, but again, I love all of it in different ways. And so even it doesn't always feel like work too, which is nice. I love the social media component of it, and creating posts and interacting with readers and all that stuff. I've been able to do some amazing travel and trips. I've met you guys, a couple guys a couple times in person. I did Edinburgh last fall, which was an amazing trip, and then Seattle this past spring. And so I've tried to, like, those are technically work trips, but I always try to build in a couple extra days to do stuff in the immediate vicinity, especially if it's a place I've never been to before. And so, yeah, again, it's always all about balance, right? And trying to, figure out what works and put your all into things, but also take some time for yourself as well. So still figuring that out. Don't claim to have any answers on it, but it's better than it used to be.
I was reading that work-life balance is actually not achievable in the way that people think, like that you should like always do work this much and your personal life this much, and you need to look at work-life balance as a seasonal thing, and that sometimes your work may need your time more, but then when you're done with that particular project you need to then focus more on like what's happening in your life and balance it that way, and not trying to achieve it to like consistently happen, because then you're just constantly failing. So
yeah, that's it. Yeah, it does. It does feel like it can be a lose model at times, where like the inevitable conundrum is when you're taking personal time, you feel like you should be working, and when you're working, you're thinking about what you're missing out on or what else you could be doing instead. And so, yeah, it is a struggle. I don't think there's any perfect answer. But yeah, something I'm trying to work on a little bit.
Yeah. So when you go like to book signings and you book in extra days to go do stuff, there you go.
Exactly.
Well, speaking of signings, are we going to see you at any coming up?
I don't have a ton I can say on this. Things are happening behind the scenes. I have my first Canadian signing next year, which I'm very excited about because I have yet to do one up north. That has not been announced yet, though, hopefully soon. And I have some book tour stuff in the works. I'm hoping to go out on tour for at least one of my upcoming releases. And so those are just all behind the scene details. Nothing's been confirmed yet. That I can talk about. So yeah, I don't have anything definite that I've announced, but I will be out and doing stuff either later this year or early next year is the current target. But yeah, I love doing signings. They're so much fun. I just did one at the Ripped Bodice in New York City, which is such a fantastic bookstore. And I was at Seattle earlier this year, and like I said, Edinburgh before. So I try to go to new places and places I hadn't been previously, and we'll continue to try to do so. It's again just a balancing act too. Of I'm got a busy writing schedule. I'm booked through the end of next year, right? Currently on sort of deadlines and that stuff behind the scenes. So it is just balance, I guess, has been the theme of this podcast, but just figuring out what trips I can go on, and not just go on, but enjoy and like build in a little bit of personal time, while also making sure I meet my deadlines and am giving the attention that those books need. So hopefully I will have some definite dates and locations to announce soon. So stay tuned on that.
And so what would be the best way for readers to connect with you?
Yes. So my newsletter is a great way too. I don't promote it as often as I should, but you can find it on my website, and I send them out usually every other week is my target. I'll do it if I happen to have like a release in the week between. I'll send out an extra one or something, but I do only send 2 a month, and that includes all upcoming releases, recent releases. If I have like a pre-order campaign for a new release, and you can order signed copies, or if I'm doing a signing, all those details are reliably included in my newsletters, like the most concise, consistent way to hear from me. But I also try to keep my social media pages up to date. I'm most active on Instagram and TikTok, but I have Facebook and Threads, I guess, as well. I'm author C.W. Farnsworth on all of those platforms, and my website as well. You can just search that, authorcwfarnsworth.com, and that has details on all my books. And I also try to keep that up to date with signings and any other sort of relevant info about me.
Perfect.
Well, that takes me to the end of our questions.
Okay.
Is there anything else you wanted to share or questions you were just hoping we were going to ask you today?
Just burning to
No,
answer.
thank you for listening to me babble for long-winded answers on some of the questions, but it was so lovely to chat with you ladies. I really enjoyed it.
You too.
Yes, thank you so much. I know you're busy and that it took us a while to get all of our schedules lined up. So thank you for so much for taking the time to join us today.
No worries. I was
For
very
sure.
happy to. Thank you for having me.
And don't worry about the long-windedness. I am the queen of long-winded. You were perfect. So you're great.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. All right. Are you ready to wrap it up, Mandy?
I think so.
All right, guys. Well, thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you in the next video.